You ever come across a harvester so strange that you second-guessed if it was even real? Well, stick around because we're going to count down 15 bizarre American harvesters you won't believe exist from way back in the 1900s. These groundbreaking yet unconventional machines help shape modern agriculture with their odd designs, surprising innovations, and downright quirky concepts. Prepare to revisit those nostalgic decades when inventors tried just about everything to make harvest time faster, easier, and, well, a bit more peculiar. Let's get started. Number 15. The Holt Caterpillar Track-Type Combine. Now, before there was Caterpillar as we know it, there was the Holt Manufacturing Company, famous for pioneering track-laying tractors. In the early 1900s, Holt also toyed with the idea of a combined harvester that ran on tracks rather than wheels, a bold approach meant to conquer a muddy field. And by the 1920s, Caterpillar, formed by the merger of Holt and Best, gave a serious look at these offbeat prototypes. Imagine a clunky, oversized contraption crawling across a field, with heavy steel tracks rattling while it tackled wheat or barley. Many farmers were accustomed to horse-drawn and early tractor-drawn harvesters, so seeing a full-fledged tracked machine in the 1920s might shock the senses. Despite their bulk, these track-type combines offered decent traction on softer soils. At a time when conventional steel wheels could easily get stuck in the mud, a track-laying system provided better stability, even though cost and complexity did limit widespread adoption. The Caterpillar's concept hinted at a future where advanced traction systems would become the norm. The basic premise, maximize flotation and minimize compaction, still resonates with modern equipment designs. For folks back then, though, it was more like gazing into a sci-fi future. Imagine standing in a field watching a giant metal beast rummage through your crops, leaving onlookers speechless. Number 14. The Allis-Chalmers All-Crop Harvester. Introduced in 1935, the Allis-Chalmers All-Crop series was a small pull-type combine that shook up mid-century farming. The All-Crop name wasn't just a marketing gimmick. It really could handle numerous grains, seeds, and even delicate crops like clover. In an era when specialized harvesters ruled the roost, Allis-Chalmers embraced a broader view, give farmers a single piece of machinery that could handle multiple tasks. For many families working modest farms, this meant not having to invest in multiple harvesters. While maybe not the biggest or mightiest combine, the all-crop design was still unconventional for the time because it aimed to be a universal solution. If you look at one up close, it seems like a miniature combine with a narrow, somewhat boxy body. But it had a reputation for delivering remarkably clean grain samples and leaving a very little bit in the field, thanks to in part its also unique rasp bar threshing cylinder and adjustable cleaning system. Keep the weight down, Allis-Chalmers used a relatively small grain bin and simpler mechanisms, resulting in a machine that was downright nimble by 1930 standards. It also was surprisingly easy to power with small tractors. Bizarre or not, these bright orange marvels popped up everywhere, proving that sometimes the strangest ideas, like building one machine for every harvest, could turn into an American classic. Number 13. The McCormick-Deering No. 61 Combine. By the early 1920s, international harvesters sought to move beyond just big stationary threshers and smaller binder setups, introducing the McCormick-Deering No. 61 Combine as one of the earliest pull-type models. This machine combined cutting and threshing in a single pass, allowing farmers to abandon the labor-intensive method of binding, stacking, and then threshing. For many rural folk used to multiple steps and lots of manpower, seeing a contraption that handled everything at once felt almost magical. Despite being innovative, it looked pretty bizarre for its day. Perched on big steel wheels, the No. 61 was a bulky box with rotating chains, shaker screens, and a swirling fan system that blew out chaff. It needed a robust tractor, often an IH-15 or 30 or similar, to drag it along, which could be a sight in itself. A big iron tractor puffing black smoke hitched to this behemoth that spat out straw behind it. This combine's mechanism used a small cylinder to thresh the grain, while a series of straw racks handled separation. Bystanders might have scratched their heads at how the contraption didn't clog or break. Over time, though, the No. 61 proved that simplifying harvests into one continuous process was the future, giving farmers a glimpse at just how productive fieldwork could become. Number 12. The John Deere No. 2 Corn Snapper. In the roaring 1920s, John Deere sought to address a pressing need, harvesting corn more efficiently without relying on labor-intensive handpicking. The result was the No. 2 Corn Snapper, a curious implement that hooked onto a tractor to snap ears off the stalk. Though not a complete combine in the modern sense, it was radical because it attempted to automate a task that was mostly done by hand. And it looked the part too, with angled snapping rolls and a conveyor system that spat ears into the wagon. Compared to the more refined corn heads that we see on combines today, the number 2 corn snapper was downright primitive. But in that era, seeing a mechanical gadget that literally plucked ears off stalks was mesmerizing. The device had a pair of snapping rolls that could pull the corn stalk down, while the ears broke off at the top and moved up a chain elevator into a wagon. It only handled the snapping part, leaving the husking and shelling for separate processes. Still, for farmers who were used to the backbreaking chore of walking rows with a corn knife, this gadget was like stepping into the future. Sometimes bizarre, it's just another way of saying way ahead of its time, and John Deere's number 2 corn snapper was precisely that. Number 11, the International Harvester 123 SP. Now, by the early 1940s, International Harvester recognized the need for a self-propelled combine that could handle mid-sized operations. Enter the IH-123 SP, a machine that looked like a cross between a tractor and a giant metal box with a header in front. It was introduced around the height of World War II, when many American manufacturers were diverting resources to the war effort, so releasing a new harvester in that climate was indeed a bold choice. One glance at the IH-123 SP might have made you wonder if some plane parts were bolted onto a tractor chassis. Now, the driver's seat perched on top of the combine gave operators a commanding and often breezy view, but it also made the entire rig appear top-heavy. Underneath, you had a robust 4-cylinder engine driving both the combine's forward motion and its threshing components. The internal setup used a rasp bar cylinder, straw walkers, and cleaning screens, fairly standard for the era, but the packaging was anything but. In practice, the 123 SP could harvest wheat and small grains at a faster pace, especially quicker than typical pull-type models, offering a glimpse into the fully self-propelled future. For folks in that era, though, it must have seemed a tad surreal to see a tractor combine floating through fields on its own power. Number 10, the Massey Harris number 20 SP. Now, Massey Harris stunned the agricultural world in 1938 when it debuted the number 20 SP, often credited as one of the first commercially successful self-propelled combines. Sure, Gleaner had prototypes and others dabbled in small runs, but the number 20 SP is widely recognized for bringing the self-propelled design to the mainstream. Early versions had an almost box-on-wheels appearance, with the engine mounted high and the operator station tucked on the side. What made it bizarre was how compact everything felt. Header, threshing chamber, grain tank, and driver all seemed crammed into a single contraption. From today's perspective, it looked like an odd piece of antique machinery, but at the time, it was the talk of the farming community. With the number 20 SP, Massey Harris proved that self-propelled combines could be mass-produced economically. It had a 4-cylinder engine and was known for its straightforward mechanical drive system. Plus, it could harvest faster than most pull-type machines. The design might have been a bit top-heavy and tricky on hillsides, but it was a game-changer nonetheless. People gathered at county fairs and field demonstrations just to marvel at the strange but effective number 20 SP. Brilliant or bizarre, it cemented itself as a key milestone in the evolution of combines and set the stage for bigger, more advanced models that dominated the mid-1900s. Number 9, the Minneapolis Moline Uniharvester. Minneapolis Moline was never afraid to challenge conventions, and in the 1960s, they gave farmers the Uniharvester, a truly modular system that some folks called downright peculiar. At first glance, it looked like a front drive power unit with a big engine in the back and no permanent header attached. The magic lay in how you could swap out various attachments up front, a corn picker, a combine head, or even a forage harvester, all without changing the main drive unit. While other manufacturers sold complete, dedicated machines, Minneapolis Moline offered a build-your-own harvester approach. Now, this was bizarre for the time, when farmers usually bought separate machines for each job, but the Uniharvester was all about flexibility and potentially lowering your costs. Purchase the power unit once, and then just add specialized headers as your operation demanded. The layout was such that an operator sat up front with an unobstructed view, looking almost like they were steering a big contraption with no front end. Switching heads took some mechanical know-how, and breakdowns could be complicated because there were so many components interchanged, but still, the idea appealed to certain farmers looking to save money and space. The Uniharvester might not have replaced every machine on the market, but it certainly rattled the status quo and remains a captivating footnote in agricultural history. Number 8, the Case Model 600 Combine. In the mid-1950s, J.I. Case was eager to expand its self-propelled combine offerings. The result was the Case Model 600 Combine, introduced in 1957, sporting a distinctive high-profile design. Now, at first glance, it looked like an elongated box on tall wheels, with the operator's seat perched surprisingly high. The idea was to provide a better view of the head and field conditions, but it also gave the combine an almost lopsided appearance. Beneath the odd exterior, though, the Model 600 introduced some forward-thinking features. It employed an efficient grain cleaning system with a vibrating shoe that effectively separated chaff and straw, and its rasp bar cylinder handled threshing with decent throughput. Now, operators appreciated a more powerful engine compared to earlier case machines, though that added heft made the combine appear even more top-heavy. Heading down a slope, the 600 could feel like it was teetering on stilts a bit. While never a dominant player in the field, the Model 600 demonstrated Case's willingness to take design risks. For onlookers, it certainly looked unusual in action, almost like a towering grain harvester on stilts. Love it or loathe it, it cemented its place among the era's more peculiar self-propelled combine attempts. Number 7. The Lilliston Peanut Combine. Peanuts might not get as much nationwide attention as corn or wheat, but for southern farmers, they're vital. By the late 1940s, a small Georgia-based company called Lilliston took peanut harvesting to a new level with a combine designed specifically for those tasty legumes. Unlike standard grain combines, the Lilliston Peanut Combine had to uproot vines, separate pods from the plants, and clean off excess dirt, all in a single pass. Now, visually, it was an odd contraption, with long conveyors and rotating cylinders that looked more like they belonged in a factory rather than a field. The reason that many folks considered it bizarre was that the peanuts grow underground, so combining them involved more than just cutting and threshing. The machine had to carefully pull them up, invert their vines, and strip the peanuts from the roots. Early versions also had a distinctive arrangement of shaking bars and screens to remove soil. If you ever saw one in operation, you might be taken aback by how rough it appeared. Yet it was a delicate operation to avoid damaging the nuts. The Lilliston Peanut Combine became synonymous with southeastern peanut farming by the mid-1900s, a testament to how specialized harvesters can look downright strange to those unfamiliar with the crop. Number 6. The Byron 103 Sweet Corn Harvester. Byron Enterprises, founded in the 1960s, focused on vegetable harvesting solutions that went beyond typical field crops. Their 103 Sweet Corn Harvester from the 70s embodied a new breed of niche harvesting equipment. While the standard combine is mostly about grains, the Byron 103 tackled the tricky job of harvesting sweet corn cobs without damaging the kernels meant for fresh markets or canning. Its silhouette was something else: big metallic booms, rotating rollers, and spiked chains to gently pull and strip the ears off the stalks. What made it bizarre was its single-minded focus on sweet corn. You couldn't just pop a different header on and harvest wheat. No, the 103 was built for one task. It also featured an elevator that moved the husked ears onto a wagon or truck, which could be fascinating to watch. The machine essentially snapped, husked, and delivered sweet corn, assembly line style, in real time. Farmers who ventured into specialty crops found it a lifesaver, but to a passerby, it might have seemed like a giant mechanical beast plucking corn stalks at warp speed. Despite its oddly specific function, the Byron 103 paved the way for modern sweet corn and other vegetable harvesters, proving that bizarre can unbelievably be effective when tackling a highly specialized job. Number 5. The New Idea Unisystem. Now, debuting in 1963 under the New Idea brand, the Unisystem was basically the spiritual cousin to Minneapolis Moline's Uni-Harvester. Similar in concept, a single power unit with interchangeable harvest modules, the Unisystem allowed farmers to install different headers and processing units for haylage, silage, or picking ear corn. Some models even let you shell the corn on the go. However, the exposed mechanical complexity made these rigs look like the farm equivalent of a Transformers toy. Only this was decades before such pop culture references existed. Now, a typical Unisystem setup had the operator's cab in the front and the engine somewhere in the middle and a giant slot at the front where you'd latch on a husking bed, a forage chopper, or maybe a combine head. Since it was so modular, you could see all sorts of belts, pulleys, and shafts spinning in various directions. Sometimes it was a bit unnerving if you got too close. The payoff, however, was the convenience of switching from corn picking in the fall to forage chopping for silage, all with the same power unit. In a farming world dominated by specialized, dedicated machines, the New Idea approach was quite unconventional. Now, that being said, it developed a dedicated following among those who preferred the Swiss Army knife approach to field harvesting, leaving us with yet another bizarre chapter in 20th century farm equipment. Number 4. The White 9700 Rotary Combine. By the 1970s, rotary technology and combines was the next big thing. White farm equipment jumped on board with the 9700 Rotary Combine, introduced around 1979. Rotary design itself, using a large rotor to thresh and separate grain rather than that traditional cylinder and straw walker combo, was still considered unorthodox, so White's big, boxy 9700 looked both futuristic and a little intimidating. With its tall sheet metal and robust rotor system, it stood out in wheat and soybean fields, often turning heads. Unlike simpler, conventional combines, the 9700 rotor spun the crop material in a spiral chamber, effectively threshing and separating grains with minimal grain damage. In theory, this meant improved efficiency. However, White's entry into the rotary market came late and was overshadowed by competing designs like International Harvester's axial flow. Plus, the 9700 had some mechanical teething issues that made it less appealing for the mainstream. Still, from a purely visual standpoint, it boasted a unique top-heavy look, especially once farmers bolted on large grain headers. At tractor shows today, if you see a White 9700, it's really a rare treat, an odd relic of that era's rotary revolution, which embodied all the optimism and occasional missteps of manufacturers pushing the boundaries in the late 1900s. Number 3. The Sperry New Holland TR70. When Sperry Corporation owned New Holland, they introduced the TR70 in 1975, one of the earliest twin-rotor combines. While the concept of a single rotor was already jarring to some farmers, New Holland pushed the weirdness up a notch by using dual counter-rotating rotors to process crops. Outwardly, the TR70 had a blocky, wide body that seemed extra robust to house both rotors, plus a stylishly angular cab design for its time. What made it bizarre was the two-rotor system, which improved threshing capacity but came with engineering challenges. Splitting the crop flow across twin rotors helped handle heavy loads in cereals and in corn. However, early TR70s were known to be finicky. Belts, bearings, and distribution augers, they all had to be meticulously maintained to keep everything running smoothly. Farmers who made it work praised the combine for less grain damage and better throughput. Detractors found the design too complicated. But still, the TR70's distinct approach set New Holland apart. If you've never seen one before and stumbled upon it in a field, you might scratch your head trying to figure out why it needed two massive spinning drums inside. But today, the twin rotor system is far from bizarre. It's a respected design used in modern combines. But back in 1975, it was radical and to many, downright strange. Number 2, the John Deere 55H Hillside Combine. In the 1950s, John Deere tackled the steep hills of the Pacific Northwest with the 55H Hillside Combine. Early Hillside combines generally used clever leveling mechanisms that kept the threshing components horizontal even on inclines exceeding 40%. The 55H was especially striking, with large side-mounted hydraulic cylinders that tilted the whole machine. When operating in a hilly region like the Palouse or Washington State, onlookers would witness the combine's body staying level while its wheels angled along a slope. Quite a sight. Now, this was bizarre in the best way. Traditional combines on such grades risked tipping over or at least performing poorly, but the 55H overcame that with what looked like mechanical wizardry for the time. Farmers would watch the machine pivot and tilt as if it had a mind of its own. The inside boasted a set of sensors that triggered the leveling system to adjust in real time. Though John Deere wasn't alone, other manufacturers had Hillside or Hillside-adapted models, but the John Deere 55H stood out as an icon of bizarre yet brilliant engineering. In fact, Hillside combines remain a necessity in specific regions, and the 55H paved the way for more sophisticated leveling systems that continue to amaze folks who see these machines defy gravity every harvest. Number 1, the International Harvester Axial Flow 1460. Topping our list is the machine that turned the concept of combining on its head, the International Harvester Axial Flow, introduced in 1977 with models like the 1460 and 1480. The axial flow was revolutionary for its single longitudinal rotor system, compared to straw walkers and traverse cylinders. This approach forced crop material to spiral the length of a single rotor for threshing and separation. At first glance, it just seemed plain bizarre, a big red shell hiding a swirling vortex of straw, chaff, and grain. IH engineers touted benefits like gentler crop handling, better separation, and simpler design once you got used to the big rotor. Now, farmers who'd grown up around conventional combines were understandably skeptical, but sure enough, the axial flow gained a reputation for outstanding grain quality and fewer moving parts. While rotary technology wasn't an IH exclusive by the late 70s, their axial flow line soared in popularity. changing the trajectory of combine development across the industry. The distinctive red paint job, the sleek lines, and whirring single-rotor design captured imaginations and remains iconic even decades later. If you asked farmers in 1977 whether they believed a single spinning drum could outdo conventional threshing, many might have called it pure science fiction. Yet, International Harvester proved that it was very real, and it just might be the strangest success story in American harvester history. Hey, jokes aside, these 15 machines paint a fascinating picture of American agricultural progress throughout the 1900s, often by thinking outside the box and daring to be different. We hope you enjoyed this nostalgic journey into harvesters that took wildly inventive approaches. Which one shocked you the most? Well, share your thoughts in the comments. And hey, if you love this trip down memory lane, give this video a thumbs up. We hope you found the video helpful, and if you're into more deep dives on vintage farming and tech, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, here's to the ingenious, if not sometimes a little bit odd, spirit of American farming.